All right, well, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining me this afternoon. I have that it's 4 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Dr. Barlow, and I'm Dean of the Graduate School. And I want to take just a few minutes of your time today to talk about probation and some of the rules and regulations around that. There will be time. Again, I'm not going to talk for very long, but that'll just allow opportunity to ask questions if you have them. You can pose questions in the Q&A or in the chat, and I will try to answer those once I go through my information. So let me get started. So the goals that we have for this afternoon are: one, it's really important as we talk about this that we know the difference between a cumulative GPA and a program GPA. So I'll be explaining what those two are, and then you'll see those terms used in our policies. So I'll go through the policy and make sure you understand it. And then I do want to take a moment to talk about the supports that we have in place at UCA to help you to be academically successful. Before I go too far though, I do want to say that I typed probation into Google, and these are the types of images came up. And so, in general, the term sounds very negative, but I don't want you all to think of it as a negative term. In the graduate school at UCA, we think of it as it's just a moment to pause and think, how can we do a better job of supporting someone? And we see that through both academic supports as well as like individuals, because we really do have a goal of seeing you cross that stage and earn your degree. So that's our goal. And by being placed on probation, it just brings an alert to you that says, hey, let's think about this. How can we do this better? Because we want to see you graduate. So with that in mind, I said we'd start by talking about the two different GPAs that are involved in this policy. So first of all, as a graduate student, you're going to have a program GPA. So that's this one over here on the right. And in places like in degree works, you may see it called your major GPA. But basically, those are the grades for the classes that apply to your graduate degree. Alternatively, we have the cumulative graduate GPA, and those are all of the graduate classes that you've taken at UCA. If you're in your first program and you're not taking any extra classes along the way, which you shouldn't be, then those two are the same. In other words, if you just finished your first semester and you took 9 hours and your GPA was a 3.0, well, so far that's your cumulative GPA, 3.0. And if all of those applied to your program, then that's also your program GPA. But the issue comes because sometimes people take classes that don't apply to their graduate program, so that's problematic. And then sometimes people get an additional graduate degree. And when that happens, it looks more like this. So let's say you just took 3 classes and they all applied to your program, and those are sitting right here, and maybe you have a 3.0 on those. But maybe you've already completed a master's degree, and so you've got some other classes that are a part of this cumulative GPA. And in some situations, a person is doing fine on their current program, but it's these extra classes out here that are pulling their overall graduate GPA down. And sometimes it's the reverse of that. Sometimes the cumulative GPA, so when you take all the graduate classes, the GPA looks fine. But maybe you've only taken a couple of classes that are actually a part of your degree, and you haven't maintained a 3.0. So either of those situations will place a student on probation. One way to know about your GPA is to look in DegreeWorks, and DegreeWorks is a wonderful tool for knowing, are the classes that I'm taking, are they applying to the degree? Have they fallen into fall through? What is my GPA? What are my 2 GPAs? So if you haven't done it already, I encourage you to access DegreeWorks. You can find it by going to My UCA, looking under the student roles, or you can do a search for it, but it'll show up as DegreeWorks for students. And once you're in there, you're going to see something like this. So this is a worksheet, and I just saved it as a PDF. But when you look at it, you see quite a bit of information, several GPAs on here. This particular student, when I look under their degree GPA, and you can see my red arrow pointing at that, their degree GPA is a 3.66. So that's actually the cumulative GPA. And it's graduate only. So if you were an undergraduate here, that's not a part of it. It's graduate courses only. And then the major GPA or the degree GPA is a 3.66 also. So we see this is a case where both the cumulative GPA and the program GPA are the same. That tells me the student has only been taking classes on their degree plan, and this is the only graduate degree that they have worked on at UCA. You'll also notice right up here at the top, academic standing, the student's in good standing. In order to be good standing as a graduate student, you need the 3.0 or better GPA. And so this person is in good standing. If the GPAs, either one of them, were below the 3.0, then right there where it says academic standing, it would instead say probation. This student, so this is just another example of a student, and their GPAs are different. So you can see right here under the, where it says the degree, this would be the cumulative GPA. It's a 3.0. And then under the program GPA, it's a 3.125. This is actually a case where they've taken, this student has taken a couple of extra classes, and you can see that because their degree, they've completed 30 hours, but in total they've completed 36. So they've taken 2 extra classes, and those grades in those 2 classes have actually pulled their GPA down, which is why one of the reasons we tell students don't take classes that are not a part of your degree plan, because when your degree is only 30 hours, which many of our master's degrees are, you don't have room to mess up your GPA like you did perhaps as an undergraduate. Anyway, so this student, the degrees are different, but they're still both above a 3.0, and so we see them in good standing. So again, my first piece of advice for you would be to look in DegreeWorks, check out your GPAs, and make sure you have a clear idea of where you stand in that regard. Now, the policy itself, you'll see it talks about that cumulative graduate GPA and the program GPA, and the expectation is that you keep those both at a 3.0 or above. And when it happens that you're not at that 3.0, you're placed on academic probation. And as I said a moment ago, that just serves as an alert to the student that there's some potential academic problems and they need to be addressed. Part of this policy also talks about how many hours you can take while you're on probation. And in order to know how many hours, you have to figure out, are you part of a cohort program or are you part of a non-cohort program? A cohort program, examples of those are like physical therapy, occupational therapy, the CSPA program if you're full-time, psychology. These are all programs where they look at the student and they tell you, you will take these classes during this semester, you will take these classes during next semester, and you don't really have a choice. In contrast, a non-cohorted program is one where you determine how many hours you're going to take in a semester. Maybe you're taking 3 or 6 or 9. You have a little bit more choice in terms of what you're taking. They might say, here are the 5 classes we're offering, and then you would be selecting 2 of those. So those are non-cohort because you're not coming in as a group and then progressing through all the classes together. So knowing what type of program you're in will help you to know how many hours you can take while you're on probation. So the policy, I'm back to the policy, it continues. If you're a cohort student, then you're allowed 1 additional semester of whatever the required hours are to improve your GPA. So if your cohort is expected to take 10 hours the next semester, that's what you take. If it's 12, if it's 6, whatever the cohort is requiring, that's what you take, and that's your opportunity to improve your GPA. If you're in a non-cohort program, which that's the majority of our students, then you are allowed to take 9 additional hours of courses. So while you're on probation, you're only allowed to take 9 hours total, and all 9 hours have to be a part of your degree plan. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about that. So an example, I'm going to represent this visually for you. If you're in a cohort, like this is for fall semester, you took however many hours they told you. You came out of it, you found yourself on probation, so we're here talking to each other today. And that cohort person, you have this semester, however many hours they've told you you're expected to take, those are the hours that you have to pull your GPA up, so that at the end of the semester, you have to be off probation. So you have to have that 3.0 GPA. Note also that some of the cohort programs have higher expectations than the graduate school. So if you're a part of a cohort program, it's advantageous to talk to your program advisor to make sure we're on the right path. Like I said before, most of us though are not in cohort programs. So there's several different ways that this can look in terms of taking your 9 hours. So semester 0, that's last semester, you took however many hours, and now you find yourself on probation. One thing you could do is you could take all 9 hours this semester. And again, all 9 hours have to be counting towards your degree. And then at the end of the semester, you have to be off of probation. And Leslie George in my office is the person who would be checking to see if your GPA has now improved enough to get you off of probation. Not all students want to do that though. So you do have the option, again, let's go back and say, we're on probation now. You could take, for example, 6 hours this semester, and then in the summer, you would take 3 more. And so the expectation would then be that you're off probation by the end of that 9 hours. And of course, you could switch it. You could do 3 hours in the first semester, 6 hours in the second semester, or you could spread it out over 3 semesters and do 3, 3, and 3. The point is you've got that flexibility, and at the end of it, you have to be off of probation. What you cannot do is try to do 6 hours one semester and 6 hours another, because 6 plus 6 is 12. And then you've taken too many hours while you're on probation. So it's really important to keep that in mind, that you're only allowed 9 hours and all the hours have to apply to your degree. So the policy says that, you know, at the end, you've got these number of hours allowed, and then at the end of the probationary status, 1 of 2 actions will occur. Either the cumulative GPA and the program GPA are going to be a 3.0 or greater, and then you're in good standing. And here's the thing, you should have received a letter. I'm going to show you an example letter that tells you exactly what you need to do to get your GPA up to a 3.0. So in this example letter, and in all of the letters that we send out, it's the second paragraph that gives you that information. So I'm just going to increase the size of the sample letter that I have. And you can see for this particular student, it tells you what the current GPA is. They had a 2.66 on non-graduate hours. I'm betting that means they had 2 B's and a C. So that C has hurt them. That tells them they're on probation. And you can see right here in the second sentence, you will need to make 1 3-hour A and then nothing less than a B in your next 9 hours. So as long as you have 1 A, so out of those 9 hours, if we think of that as 3 classes, at least one of those has to be an A. The other 2 could be B's, and this student is fine. But that information varies from one student to the next. So be sure to go back and look at your letter, read it carefully, and make sure you understand exactly what's needed for you to do in these next few courses so that you can get off of probation. If you don't, and so this is the second action that can possibly happen. So if your cumulative or your program GPA is less than a 3.0, then you'll be suspended from graduate study at UCA. We do have the possibility of appealing a suspension, and that's largely based on did your GPA improve, and is it possible for you to get to the 3.0 in the extended probationary period. If that happens to you, if you're at a point where appealing a suspension is a possibility, then I'll be happy to provide more information about that and what that looks like. But it's all spelled out in the graduate bulletin. But for right now, we're just going to focus on doing what we need to do to get off of probation so that we don't have to fool with appealing a suspension. So with that in mind, I do want to take just a few minutes to talk about academic supports, and then I'll open this up to questions that you all might have. And again, we have the Q&A feature that you can put questions in. So in terms of academic supports, one of the greatest resources you have is your advisor, and it is your instructors. Most of the time, your advisor, well, I know your advisors are very invested in seeing you be successful, and instructors are too. For the most part, they're great people, they're great faculty, and they really want to see you be successful in their graduate courses. So communicating with those individuals early and often will go a long way towards supporting your success. So don't feel like you're out there alone. Know that you do have those faculty to support you through this process. I also want to encourage you to take advantage of the Center for Writing and Communication. The CWC is there to help with graduate students. I know a lot of times we feel like they are primarily focused on supporting undergraduates in their writing, but they are very much able to support you in your graduate writing and presentations as well. So if that is a component of any of your courses, then make sure to plan far enough ahead so that when you have to write a paper that you take it to the center and have them look over it and give you some feedback so that you can improve it before you submit it for a grade. They do have virtual meeting times, and so it's not necessarily that you go there physically to their space. You can also meet with them online, and they can provide you with very meaningful feedback. I mentioned it earlier, but also look at your degree works audit. This is really important because when you take classes that don't apply to your degree, not only does it potentially hurt your GPA, but it also takes time away from focusing on classes that are a part of your degree. Leslie has tried to check that for all of you on your in your audit to make sure that the courses you're taking are applying to your degree. But you can take a look at it as well to see if you have courses that you've previously taken that are sitting and fall through. So that is a support that we provide, and there's a lot of useful information in your degree audit. The library has research coaches. They are there. They are just begging to talk with people to help them with the processes that they need, whether it's identifying sources to help you with a paper or just learning more about the search tools and things that they have for you to use online. So know that the library and the staff there, they are definitely a resource to support you academically. And then throughout the semester, we offer Bear Scholars seminars, and oftentimes those seminars have topics that are aimed at supporting your success. So be on the lookout for announcements for those. And if you can, join us for a webinar. It'll be just like this, but somebody instead of me will be talking and sharing useful information. Our past seminars are also available on our YouTube channel. And so you can go there and look at the different topics. And if you see one that would be helpful, then watch it, and that will be useful for you in terms of supporting your academic success. And then finally, reach out to the Office of Student Success. Although, a lot of their information is geared towards undergraduates, the different strategies and support workshops and sessions that they have are useful for graduate students. So that is another place that we have information and workshops and things available to you as a graduate student. So take advantage of those as well. Part of supporting you academically is supporting your well-being collectively, like all around. So if you haven't met John Scott, he's our graduate support GA, and you can always email him at gradsupport@uca.edu. And John Scott is a resource. You can talk to him if you just want to have someone to talk to. If you are leery for some reason about going to the counseling center, but you want to have someone to talk to, John Scott is able to talk to you. If you have questions and you want to know, like, what are some resources for me that might help me with blank, whatever it is, John Scott can get you answers to those questions. He also does quite a bit of work around, well, he does all the Mindfulness Mondays for this campus. So that's he can share the information with you about how to access the Mindfulness Mondays information. And he also supports us by providing well-being information throughout our podcast and webinars and things. So just a really great resource. to help you think about your well-being overall and not just focusing on academic success. I mentioned a moment ago the counseling center. We have the counseling center. Please take advantage of it. Historically, there's been some stigma about reaching out for that type of support, but there absolutely should not be. And so I want to encourage you to take advantage of those services that are offered by the counseling center. The Hyper is available. So, physical activity is a great way to support your overall well-being, which then goes towards supporting your academic success. So take advantage of the Hyper and get active. And so with that, I'll just pause and say that, again, my goals today were just to make sure we were really clear on what's expected for you in order to get off of probation and find some academic success and be able to move forward in your program. I have my email on the screen for you. So, if there are ever instances where you have questions, please reach out to me directly. I'm happy to answer those questions. I also have our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram ID, or whatever it's called, UCA Grad School. So please follow us on social media. John Scott is pretty active about sharing information on our different platforms so that that's one way we get information to you. And then also I take every opportunity to plug our podcast, Grad Chats with Dr. B, which is available on wherever you get your podcast. But last semester, I did some really nice interviews with some of our graduate students about, for example, we did nutrition for graduate students, we did imposter syndrome, we did gratitude. So there's a lot of useful information in there in the podcast to support you as you advance in your graduate studies at UCA. So I hope you'll take a moment to find us on wherever you get your podcasts and take a listen. And so with that, I will, I will stop sharing my screen so that I can see if there are questions in the Q&A. And again, if you have questions, just type those in and I'll patiently wait to see if we have any questions. Oh, okay, we've got a question. So let me read this real quick. Okay, so this is a question about, so currently, if you're a student that's in one graduate program and your goal is to finish that program and go into another program, does probation right now in some way negatively impact your ability to go into another graduate program? And so here's the thing, like in order to earn the degree that you're currently in, you're going to have to get off probation. Okay, and so once you get off of probation, that means your GPA is a 3.0 or higher. And so then you'll be qualified to start a new program. So you could apply and go forward. If for some reason you didn't get off of probation, so that means your GPA is below a 3.0, you're not going to get the degree you're in right now, right? So you have to have the 3.0 to get the degree, and you're not going to get it because you don't have the GPA. If you tried to apply to start another program, that same GPA that prevented you from finishing this one is going to prevent you from starting a new one, because you're going to have that 3.0 to start a new program. So, and as long as you get off of probation and get your GPA up to that 3.0, then you're going to be okay, both in terms of finishing your current program and starting a next one. But if for some reason you are not able to get off of probation, so that GPA is not above a 3.0, and you're suspended from graduate study, like it is not an option then to try to apply and do a different program, because you're not going to meet the entrance requirements because of that GPA. So it's in your best interest, obviously, to get your GPA up. But that also reminds me that it's really important to recognize this, that to get your graduate degree, like if you complete all the classes, but you don't have the GPA, you don't get the degree. So some of our folks, I noticed this time, have landed on probation, and they're near the very end of their program. So they may only have one class left or two classes left, and so what we don't want to see is that you finish those classes. And so you have finished the entire slate of classes for the degree, but you don't have the GPA to be able to actually receive the degree. Okay. So please be mindful that that GPA piece is really, really important. I'm not seeing any more questions pop up. So I'll go ahead and end our webinar now. Again, thank you for joining me this afternoon. This webinar will be made available on our YouTube channel, like in the next few days. So if you get away from here and you want to be reminded of something that was said, do know that you can go to our YouTube channel to and pull up this webinar and get all your answers again. Also know that you can email me or others in the graduate school to ask questions as well. So thank you. Please do great this semester. And if there's anything we can do in the graduate school to support you and your success, please let us know. Okay. Have a great afternoon.